Okay, so ABN Cast is on the road again. This time we are in Berlin for ITB Berlin. This is Europe's largest travel and tourism trade show. You find us on the Trip.com group stand. Very colourful, very busy, very noisy. Lots of business are going on around us. We're in the second day and it's been very busy. I'm joined by Chai. Chai is the Managing Director and Vice President of International Markets and Accommodation in the Accommodation Business Unit.
That's right.
The reason Chai joins me is that you launched a report this morning with the World Travel and Tourism Council looking at the big game changes in technology in travel and tourism.
Yes.
So it's quite a wide-ranging report. It goes into lots of different areas, but we'll focus on the things that are probably most relevant to the airline industry.
Sure.
Hence, that's our interest, of course. We'll go into some specifics on aviation because there was an actual section on aviation. But the first thing that you spoke about this morning was in payments, actually, or the experience of retail, which is obviously what you guys specialise in.
Yes.
Just explain what it is that a company like an OTA, a Trip.com group does in that area that can help the airlines in their endeavours to retail better and become better retailers.
I think a couple of topics I talked about this morning. One of them is digital technology. And in digital technology, we talked about AI. We also talked about super app. Now, Trip.com is really a super app. In our app itself, it allows people from planning, thinking about where to go to actually, when they actually make the booking, whether it's for flights or hotels, to be able to see, for example, for airlines, right, which gate they are going to go to. When they land in the airport, which baggage carousel they potentially will be going to.
Yeah.
Right? What time is the flight expected to take off? And is there any delays and so on? So information is there for the customers on the app itself to see it. And even when the customer or the traveler have booked the hotel and they go to the destination, they're able to, for example, use hotel translation names to actually, because you go to different countries, you use different languages, right?
Yeah.
But we have hotel translation names so that it makes the travel easier when they talk to the locals. And we have activity recommendations, restaurant recommendation, using AI to help the customers make more informed decision when it comes to traveling in the destinations. Finally, after the travel, the customer can also potentially provide reviews and also some social media posts on the Trip.com app in what we call trip moments to sort of share with customers, share with their friends, and also people who are looking to go to the destination.
Yeah.
So I think this is one area. The other area that we also talked about is the payment part. Right, payment part, I think one of the technology is really the book now, pay later option. Now, typically when someone buys travel, whether it's for hotel or flights, without the buy now, pay later option, they tend to just stick with the budget that they have. I have how much in my bank account, I can spend how much, I'll do that. But with the buy now, pay later option, they can potentially upsell. So maybe before this option, they could buy an air ticket or a hotel room that costs, let's say $300 or $500. But because of the option itself, now they can say, maybe I can buy something that's more, whether a higher star rating property or even the business class. So actually it's going to be very incremental both for the hotels and the airlines, but also something more satisfying for the customer.
Yeah. That idea of incremental payments, it's obviously something that the OTAs like yourselves have picked up and now integrating. So thinking about Apple Pay or Klarna, things like that. These are becoming well used by consumers in a general retail sense.
Yes.
Not really something the airlines themselves offer. I mean, I don't think many do. Even the LCCs, the low cost carriers, I guess. The basket value is lower, but still, it's still be quite a lot. If you're buying for a holiday for a family,
exactly,
it adds up to a lot. People don't necessarily have the cash at that point in time, so either they put it on a credit card, or they have to find the cash.
Yes.
So with this, it probably increases conversion, I would have thought,
exactly.
and actually maybe
conversion, and like I said, upsells and drive higher ADR and higher per transaction amount for the airlines or the hotels.
Yeah. Going back to the super app concept, which I know is a big thing in China because you've had WeChat mentioned earlier actually for decades now, and it is a super app and people do all sorts of things
on one app.
It's not. There are some amazing apps in the West and in Western markets, but there's never been a sort of a super app emerged like WeChat.
Right.
Why do you think that is? And is that just a matter of time that one will emerge that will become the dominant?
I personally think it's a matter of time. For example, I mean, other than Trip.com, in the car sort of transport area, Uber is trying to also be a super app.
Yes.
And I think this is going to be a trend because we need to again put customer at the center of our business. If we are able to provide efficient applications or ease of navigation for the customers, I think companies, whether it's a travel industry or non-travel industry, they will think about how to actually make it convenient for the customer.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a matter of time. And that's from the technology, from the company's perspective. The other is from the consumer perspective, right? I think once they get used to, hey, I've been to different parts of the world and I've seen different travel apps or super apps in other parts of the world, they'll also be wanting the same kind of offerings in Europe or in America.
Yeah. And I guess it's one thing that the airline themselves can't do, because it doesn't make any sense. You go with one airline for one trip,
Yes.
maybe a different airline for a long-haul trip. So it does require a third party, maybe a Trip.com group or maybe an Uber, but it does require a third party to be that super app.
Yeah,
so they can provide the whole gamut of experiences and products in travel.
Yeah, like I mentioned this morning, I think that first of all is we need to share with the industry, whether it's the aviation industry or the hospitality industry, the concept of super app.
Yeah.
Right, how convenient it is, how efficient it is. And then once they understand it and they're open about it, even one airline can think about super app. So for example, I talk about travel management in the app itself. It's not just about transactions. It's after I booked flights for my family or my friends, I can see all the itineraries and all the information. I can store your KrisFlyer or your Star Alliance or your airline mileage information in there. I can even store some of my passport information, of course, with security and encryption. And then it becomes very easy for me to look at all the information. And then once I book an airline's ticket on the app itself, potentially you can say, do you want car rentals? Do you want airport transfer?
Yep.
So I think it is something that even one airline can look at.
Yeah.
But I think it's just a matter of education and being open about making it convenient for the customer.
Yeah, the airlines in general, they are looking for ways to increase their basket, increase the amount of money they transact, their revenues. They have to.
Correct.
They don't make enough money in the industry, you might argue, because they put all that hard work in to get those aircraft in the air, and at the end of the day, a lot of the revenue goes elsewhere when it comes to booking hotels and so on. So, obviously, the industry, the airlines are looking to do this.
And honestly, it's incremental business, because if someone has already booked a flight on your app, they're already a captured customer.
Yeah, you know about them. You know when you're going. Yeah.
And you know where they're going. You know when they're going. You know what kind of preferences they have.
Yeah.
If you start to cross-sell other products, which is what Trip.com is doing, actually your cost of acquisition is going lower. It's actually cheaper.
Yeah. The section in the report on aviation really it focuses more on the kind of eVTOL, vertical takeoff and landing craft, which there's none. You know, there are examples of happening. I think in Dubai, they're probably pioneering this sort of thing.
Yes.
There's plenty of people getting this, sort of developing that technology. If you go to an air show, you'll see lots of eVTOL companies out there. It does seem to be like this is where the future lies. What's your vision for how this almost completely new form of transport takes its place in the overall transport network?
I would expand it to not just like EV for flights, but for cars and mobility and so on. I think in general, the sustainable travel concept and the mindset is going to be something that will stay with us for a long time, because the world is getting, I mean, if I use a negative word, polluted, and then, we're going to have a lot of emissions from carbon and so on. I think if we are able to start thinking about how to be more friendly to the environment across all travel products, I think this adoption is going to get more and more.
Yeah. So this is going to actually sort of spur the eVTOL development because there's a sustainability angle to it, not just the convenience for the consumer.
Exactly. And then if I'm from the accommodation business, but I think a lot of the challenges and the opportunities in the hotel industry or accommodation industry is also going to be similar for the aviation industry. So you look at SAF, for example, right? Yes, people are looking at sustainable aviation fuel, but the challenges is the scale and the cost.
Yeah.
How are you going to be able to encourage aviation industry or companies to actually adopt this? I think they need to think about how to reduce cost, right? And they'll think about, is it scalable? Same in the hotel industry. We have challenges with, first of all, how a hotel can implement sustainable travel. But from Trip.com's point of view, our job is really to educate the industry about it and make sure that we provide some sustainable options to the customers for them to make informed choices when it comes to sustainable travel itself.
I want to talk about sustainability fuel a bit more in a minute, but before we move on from the autonomous vehicle, eVTOL future, I was talking to someone about this yesterday actually, who's into the autonomous vehicle in tourism scene, and he was saying the change that will make for the hospitality industry or the tourism industry in general is where you locate your hotel or your resort or your attraction becomes more open. It's like at the moment, they're located in convenient places to get from airport to hotel.
Yes.
When that stops being the case, when that restriction goes away, it will change the whole dynamic of where things are located and and the distances involved. You see that as being one of the outcomes of this technology being adopted.
I actually see it as actually a plus for the economy and also for every country, because now we hear a lot about over tourism, and it's because it's concentrated, like you say, in key cities, convenient locations and so on. But I think you get
real hotspots, don't you? It's like, and we go 10 miles that way and there's nobody there.
Exactly,
so,
but I think with autonomous vehicle and so on, you don't have to worry about getting to certain locations because it's all automated, it's all very intelligent. So it actually can spread or help tourism to go further away from just the more hotspots itself, and it will help the secondary markets, it will help the second tier cities to actually build up the economy for tourism itself. So I think it's all a plus for the industry.
It's one of those things when you think about how technology develops and the speed at which it develops, and when you look back, you go, oh my goodness,
how could it have?
How that has changed massively. So you think in our lifetimes, in the recent times, it's the iPhone, I guess, maybe. You know, it's not that old, but the thing we've got in our hands now is so much more powerful than the original only 10, 15 years ago.
Exactly.
So then you start thinking forward from now, and you think, well, what will happen in 15, 20 years from now that when we look back, we'll go, oh my God, that was unthought of in 2025. And I do think things flying around cities, unmanned, almost like large drones that can carry people, it's probably one of those things. We won't think twice about it in 20 years.
Correct. So, for example, in the report, I also talked about digital wallet. Nowadays, I don't carry a wallet. I just carry a phone. Everything is there. My credit card information, my passport information, my biometrics, everything is I just use this to, go through immigration without the need for any hard copies itself. So I think, again, technology is going to help us be more progressive.
Yeah, the payments thing is, eventually you won't even need that. They'll probably pay with a facial recognition.
Exactly. In fact, this morning I also mentioned, right, if the industry can adopt this, when I go to certain attractions, I just turn up, they just scan my eyeballs and I go through the biometrics. I don't even need to bring any tickets.
Let's talk about the sustainability side of things, which you've mentioned already. And SAF in particular, the WTTC was talking about this earlier. And if you talk to anybody in the aviation industry, they'll tell you, look, we're all geared up for this. This is what we want to do. We just don't have enough of it. It's going to be very expensive to make that transition. I think the IATA will give you figures about what they think is going to cost between now and 2050 to go net zero. It's an eye-watering sum, and it's many, many more billions than they make in a given year in profits to the industry. So the question is always, Bill, who's going to pay for this? And it's in everybody's interest that the aviation industry in particular goes down this route, because at the end of the day, they're always going to be the biggest and most obvious polluter, and you can do things with hotels, you can do things, but at the end of the day, those aircraft have to fly, and we're going to be putting fuel in those aircraft for as long as for the foreseeable future. So what role does a Trip.com play? What role does WTTC play? What role does reports like this play in galvanizing the industry to say, look, as an industry, we've got to grasp this because it's in all our interests.
If I may use a very common or unattractive term, it takes a village. Right? Why? Because the thing is, if everybody wants to make this happen, it needs the government, it needs intermediaries like us, it needs the airline industry, it needs the whole industry to come together. So from Trip.com's point of view, again, our mission is really to educate the industry through the reports that we have today, and making sure that people understand, right, the benefits of sustainable travel, and give them the options to make that decision to pay or spend some money on carbon emission or on sustainable travel. But at the same time, if you look at WTTC, I think because they have a lot of members around the world, what they're trying to do is also to see whether they can influence the government, because I think the government organizations also need to come in to support the industry if we want to move towards that direction.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk in aviation where they see what goes on in the States. The States seems to be taking more of a kind of carrot approach to this, so they're incentivizing this production of SAF. Even today, though, all the SAF produced in the States, I think, is only enough to fuel one airline for a day. It's teeny, tiny amounts. But in Europe, places like that, there seems to be more of a stick approach, which may push the dial somewhere a little bit, but to be honest, people are absorbing the fines and they're not really making any difference. So there needs to be some form of government action to incentivize, I think, and not just in Europe, but China's going to play a part in this. I think WTTC mentioned Saudi Arabia, who want to transition into clean fuels as well.
Yeah.
Do you think it's going to happen quickly enough? We've got dates coming up. 2030 is a big date where there are targets set. 2050 is the net zero date.
Right.
This used to be a long time, but this is coming. 5 years from now, we need to have made some significant progress. Do you think that's going to happen?
I don't have a crystal ball, but I think what we can do is we should see how we can help these things to happen fast. So like I said, Trip.com Group want to do more education. We want to share with the consumers about what it means for the economy, what it means for the world if we go towards this direction. And again, I want to use a hotel example, right? When we try to launch sort of carbon emission-free certificates on the site, there are many different types of standards all around the world.
Yeah.
So the consumers sometimes get confused. Which standard should I follow? Is it for real if I pay another 4% more? Does it really go to the right place? So I think the aviation industry is probably similar. SAF is something for us as expert or people in this area, we know about it. But if you talk to any consumer who buys flights, you tell them SAF, I think probably more than 50% are not aware. No. So I think it's really about education, making sure that people understand what this means and how they can actually act on it. Yeah. And that's really the role of Trip.com. I think that's one. The other one is, once we have education, we want to make sure that there's also certain standards in the industry. Is there a certain standard, like for example, for hotel, we work with GSTC. So with that standard itself, people know, okay, this is something that's recognized around the world, and it's something that I can trust when I make certain...
It is. It's a trust thing, isn't it?
Exactly.
Is this money going to what you'd say is going to? Is it making a difference?
Yeah.
I don't think people will necessarily, all the surveys you see, people don't want to spend more on their travel. Of course they don't. It's a big expense every year. Maybe the holiday is their biggest single expense. So they're not.
But you'll be surprised. We've already seen, even on Trip.com, people are willing to spend 4% more just to help to sustainable travel. Of course, not everyone, but I think there is this inclination or wish to do it, and we've seen customers actually making that payment.
So just a final thought on like where we are as an industry. Demand is very high. I think you'll agree. I mean, certainly in aviation, almost the demand is outstripping supply at the minute. So brings its challenges, but it's a good challenge to have. You're better that way than a few years ago when there was no demand because no one could fly. So I think that's a positive. But actually, it's actually now getting the industry back up and running. So are you positive about where we are as an industry getting back from COVID? And I mean, this show is very busy today, so it's good sign.
Trip.com has been participating in ITB for the last few years, and our booth is getting bigger. We have more and more people coming. I'm pretty confident that travel is continuing to be doing well because if people have extra budget in their back pocket, I think probably the first thing they think about is travel, because travel is something that gives people experiences, get people to see new things. So I think travel is going to be really good for at least the sort of long-sightedness I can have. But again, let's see what happens.
And a lot of that demand is coming from places like China, like I guess you'd say India as well, where
and the Gen Z,
the growing middle class.
The Gen Z people they want experience. They want to experience travel. So if there's extra dollar, they will spend on travel first.
And there's a final thought before we close up on the human aspect. It was mentioned earlier. We're talking about technologies and automation and all that stuff that's really exciting and cool, and you can see it happening, and you can see travel being an amazing use case for so much of this biometrics and AI. And then the question earlier was, well, where does that leave us, the human being? Because we are human beings at the end of the day. We travel for human experiences. How does all this change the way we interact? We don't want to just interact with machines all the time. So, well, how does it change things, do you think?
I, for one, is a very strong advocate of human touch. Okay, I think whether you have technology or you don't have technology, the human touch is still very key, especially in the hospitality industry. And the other thing is that I think we look at the technology not as a threat. We look at technology more as an enabler. How can technology help us to be more efficient so that we can serve our customers, whether in the airlines or hotels or in the attractions area, better? Right? We better value add, to be more personal, to actually leverage this technology to be more efficient for our customers. I think that's how we should look at it. If we are positive about it, I think there's a lot of things we can do with technology.
And that is the promise of AI. You were keen on the AI theme earlier. it can be used just to automate and be impersonal.
Exactly.
Of course it can. If you want to do it that way, you can do it that way.
Yeah.
But actually, it's more of a mindset.
Exactly.
Not the technology. You do what you like with it, but the mindset is we want to use AI to enhance the human interaction.
Correct. My example is 1 + 1 is 3.
Yeah.
Right. Not 1 + 1 becomes 0.
Yeah. Well, Chai, look, thanks for that. Our time is just about up. Good to catch up in Germany. I'm sure we'll meet again in some other event around the world. And best of luck with everything you're doing at trip.com.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Cheers.